team the best overall. You know what I'm saying? You're not really going up against one guy. You're not trying to like battle this one guy. You're trying to battle everybody.
So yeah.
Back in the day, DMC World Finals Rob was like a big time help to me right at that point. Like I used to come into his house, practice, just put my set together like we were just putting our song together. We just were like, alright, well, it'll be dope if you do this at that point, and just a lot of input, a lot of help.
You could watch a videotape and not realize how much time and energy was put into those 6 minutes. Months and months of practice, you know, all boiled down to 6 minutes.
I took clarinet in the 4th grade.
Me and my buddy Stan that I used to dig with, he was a graffiti writer. We used to come here just looking for things like, you know, Incredible Bongo Band and stuff. Every now and then we'd buy things and Ed or Mark or someone will say, oh yeah, we got a ton of these in the basement, or, you know, oh, you should see the basement if you think this is something. So after like 5 years of hearing this, I just decided to can I just take a look? And we came down here, and I couldn't believe that there was still something like this, a cache this large, and the fact that it's relatively untouched. Just being in here is a humbling experience to me, because you're looking through all these records, and it's sort of like a big pile of broken dreams in a way. Almost none of these artists still have a career, really. So you have to kind of respect that in a way. I mean, if you're making records, and if you're DJing and putting out, you know, releases, whether it's mixtapes or whatever, you're sort of adding to this pile, whether you want to admit it or not. You know what I mean? 10 years down the line, you'll be in here. So keep that in mind when you start thinking like, oh yeah, I'm invincible and I'm the world's best or whatever.
Computer generation and newer equipment, and that style died, and the funk just didn't sound rugged like it used to. It's something about that, just that beat, man. It moves you in a certain way before you even hear vocals. It's a driving force. See, believe me, I'd probably have to go through a lot more drama than I do as a DJ because of the fact that the MC is more vocal. So when you're speaking a voice like that and you're selling over 100,000 albums, you're touching so many people. They're taking what you're saying to them, and they're hoping that you are what you talk. And I tell the guru every day, yo, let's be about everything we drop, because we're going to get tested on it. If the people on the street don't test us on it, God's going to test us on it.
Someone recorded this sound. So does that mean they own it if I go?
Digital samplers allow you to take a snatch of a record, sound, or anything like that, and turn that into a building block for a song.
We grabbed conga sounds, trumpet sounds, violin sounds, drum beat sounds, and remanipulated and created our own music.
We're taking sounds and meshing them together and putting them all in time to come up with something totally different.
At the end of the day, the court said, not only is this copyright infringement, but we see criminal prosecution in line for this one.
We never anticipated, like, getting someone to pay for James Brown going, and that's it.
I didn't even know what sampling was, and I didn't know anything about it until people say, they're sampling your drums.
We live in a remix culture now, and the laws have to change to be able to help that culture do what it has to do. A reinterpretation of that history to us in the present day.
For me, the most definitive sound in hip-hop is like the sound of a needle skipping over a scratchy record, like the sampled sound.
For someone to use a sample of an existing piece of music and then for their music, I think it's extraordinarily lazy artistic choice. it's much easier to take something that is already awesome and play it again with your name on it.
Perhaps it's a little easier to take a piece of music than it is to learn how to play a guitar or something. True, just like it's probably easier to snap a picture with that camera than it is to actually paint a picture. But what the photographer is to the painter is what the modern producer and DJ and computer musician is to the instrumentalist.
The turntable is the newest instrument. The turntables are more rhythmically complex than any other instrument based on the fact that what you can do with a fader and your hand playing at the same time, no guitar player or a horn player could play that fast.
When I'm sampling, I have all these artists. They're in my band. And I'm sampling Wes Montgomery to play guitar on my show. He's in my band. You know, I got Art Blakey, he's my drummer. That's tight. You know what I'm saying? I got all these legendary musicians that are in my band.
What they were all doing is they were beat miners. You know what I mean? They were like mining old records for those break sections, like basically 70s funk records.
Is a major funk icon. He's the maverick. He's the person that through Parliament and Funkadelic and his own works later on created a lot of the foundation for what hip-hop will become.
Of course, Back in Time has a really good sound, like James Brown. The beats are just so fat.
Music was so useful, I think, to a lot of hip-hop heads because Clyde Stubblefield's the epitome of the funk.
When I sit down, I just start playing a beat, something simple, and everybody joined in. And then Brown came in and put the lyrics to it, and it was called Funky Drummer.
Sampling came out of the DJ culture. You would have a drum beat, and then we would scratch a horn hit on top of a drum beat.
Culture of borrow and take, because it was a culture that was founded upon a lack of resources.
The idea of not having any instruments, but having a turntable and saying, well, fine, this is my instrument, you know? And you see it now with people with overturned buckets and pots and pans. We saw it then.
What sampling technology did was it basically mimicked exactly what the process was for what the DJs were doing in the parks and the community centers and the nightclubs. So it started making a lot of money.
Do Puff drive Mercedes, take hits from the 80s, but do it sound so crazy? For me personally, it's nothing personal. I do what work for me, you do what work for you.
Well, I think that once people who held music copyrights got wise to how much money hip-hop was making, then it became kind of a feasting frenzy.
So lawyers were getting involved, and there were starting to be these lawsuits over sampling, and there was an awareness that was arising about, hey, they're taking something that doesn't belong to them. It's mine. I got to get paid.
The most notable one was De La Soul's first album, which had so many samples. I can't even remember how many. And for each one, you have to have a deal with the publisher and with the master. You just hold it.
Il est midi. And of theirs, rightfully so, you know, it didn't get cleared for whatever reasons.
And 3 Feet High and Rising, they told us what the samples were on the record, and we cleared them all. They didn't tell us about the Turtles one. And that's what usually happens is it's not, you know, we changed the speed, it's an unknown song, it's only this amount. Those are the ones that get you at the end.
Just something that we did, silliness we played. It was actually like a song I put together, and like I said, once we gave the information to the Tommy Boy and did this, unfortunately, just took it as, well, this is a skit, why should we try to clear this?
The sampling case was a case that was brought by a man named Gilbert O'Sullivan, who had a hit song in the 70s called Alone Again Naturally.
Alone again, naturally.
And it was very ubiquitous. It was a sample, you really could hear the song. It was over and over again looped.
So Biz Markie takes this Gilbert O'Sullivan song and makes a parody of it, you know, called Alone Again. And he sings in, he doesn't really sing, he warbles it in his funny Biz Markie type of voice, right? And it's a great joke. Everybody kind of laughs, and you play it once, and you're like, oh, cool, that's kind of funny and stuff. Gilbert O'Sullivan didn't really think it was that funny, you know.
You know, it was a pretty aggressive sample of a song that Mr. O'Sullivan, you know, it was his big hit. So he was just a no-nonsense guy. He didn't want the song in a rap version.
So he decides he's going to make an example of this kid and files this huge lawsuit.
Interested in listening to young black men describe their creative processes, they had no tolerance for that. A new industry emerged, the industry of sampling clearances. That meant that groups like Public Enemy could no longer make their powerful sounds in the way they wished to.
And record companies are beginning to put more pressure on the artists, you know, to disclose the samples from the very, very beginning.
For a rights clearing process, you really need to identify all the different people who own all potential elements of that particular sample or musical element and make sure that they've agreed to what you want to do. And that can be very time-consuming because there's a lot of people involved in making music.
To create requires the permission of somebody else. And it's that transformation which has been radical and recent.
Our Copyright Act was basically last rewritten in 1976. So we're operating with a lot of antiquated assumptions about what musical creativity is.
It is.
Should an artist be able to say, you can't take my Stairway to Heaven and make it Stairway to Gilligan's Island or anything else, or you can't use it on a hip-hop record. You know, you can't take it out of context for anything else. You can't recontextualize what I've done. It has to stay true to the original.
Sampling was, you know, there's the confusion element in it, because we know we had to be confusing because we didn't want people coming after us.
People started to get pretty savvy about what they were sampling and then how they would mask it.
So we would make it a game for you to, like, try to figure it out. Okay, try to figure out where this came from. You can go all day long, and I know you won't find it.
They could change the tone. They could change. They got so much technology today. They can the speed go up or whatever they want to do with it, and I won't even know it's me.
It is more difficult to make a record than it is to sample it. You know, that's patently obvious.
And the bass player came in, and then the guitar player came in, and the rhythm was there. When James came in and heard it, said, yeah, I like that. Then he started putting lyrics, I don't care. Then they put the horns in. We had a song. And I started it. But we said, okay, Cold Sweat. That was mine. He didn't tell me what to play. Asked me to play. I played what I felt, but he owned it. So.
And that break ends up becoming, you know, one of the bases for a whole bunch of sample-based records.
I never got a thanks. I never got a hello, how you doing, or anything from any of the rap artists or anything. The only one I got a thanks from was Melissa Etheridge.
His name never appears on any of those compositional credits. His name is not part of the legal legacy of all of those great tunes he played on. He doesn't get royalties. He got paid for the time in the studio.
The producer or the publisher of that particular track is getting compensated for the use of that sample, but the artist that originally played that drum break that got sampled is not necessarily getting any compensation for it.
There's so many groups that sample my stuff. They say I'm the world sampler's #1 sampler's